Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we have 3 entrepreneurs joining us. My first guest will be Jillian Godsill. She's a blockchain expert and entrepreneur extraordinaire. She'll be telling us her story and sharing with us her knowledge on blockchain. And then in the afternoon, a bit later, we'll be having 2 entrepreneurs come on, tell us about their startup, what they're up to, and we'll be discussing how they can move it forward and how we maybe be able to help them. Myself, Jillian, and you, the audience, can participate in that. We're in this together. Our mission on this platform is to help 1 million people start a business of their own. We managed, as we started only last year, to help 74 people last year start. But we also have a plan to ensure that anyone who starts a business does not feel alone doing it. And that means I need you guys to contribute and be a part of this community, giving your skills, your expertise, your network, and your resources to anyone struggling right now to make their business work. And let's face it, during this difficult time in a COVID world, there isn't a business that isn't having a tough time. And a lot of those businesses are hiring and employing people that keep the actual economy alive. And if we don't support those entrepreneurs right now, I worry what 2022 will look like, and beyond for my son who's 3, what his future will look like in a world, if devastated by COVID, that we don't try to fix now. So we're here to help entrepreneurs, and we do that by sharing knowledge from people like Jillian as my first guest, and by supporting the entrepreneurs that come on here and need our help. So please stick around. Please hopefully contribute if you can. And of course, if you're listening and finding yourself having trouble as an entrepreneur and needing help, or you want to start a business of your own, please reach out. I always say, you might not think you're an entrepreneur, but you are. No one's born anything. No one's born a doctor. No one's born a lawyer. Of course, we all need training to become those things. And if you're thinking, I'm not an entrepreneur, well, think about how many different types of doctors there are. There are the brain surgeons, all the way through, of course, to GPs. They all have different skills and different talents, but they're doctors. Entrepreneurs are the same. You don't necessarily need to have one particular skill set to be an entrepreneur, and all of it is teachable. That's my firm belief. I started being an entrepreneur when I was 15 years old. I didn't realize I was one. I was thrown into entrepreneurship and realized I was one, and it's given me complete and utter freedom. So I want you guys to experience that freedom. Now, a lot of people I know on these platforms, YouTube, TikTok, and so on, talk about financial freedom. I like to talk about life freedom. It's not just about making money. It is also about hopefully doing what you love every day. And with that being said, I think that gives me a good chance to bring on Jillian to say hello to you all and for her to tell her story to us all. Hi, Jillian. Welcome.
Hello. Hi, Simon. Thank you very much for having me on your show. It's a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure to have you here. Well, I love your experience and your way of looking at entrepreneurship. But why don't we start off by you telling the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay, and actually, even before then, can I just jump in? You said about being a doctor. There's many different types of doctors in this world, and I wanted to pull that analogy even further, because you were saying being an entrepreneur, you know, how do you claim being an entrepreneur? Whereas obviously there's different doctors, but I compare it more so to being an artist, because to be an artist, you can be a very famous Michelangelo style artist, or you can be somebody who paints watercolors and sells them at the local market, whatever. And sometimes people, you know, you can be trained on to use your medium, but an artist covers a huge spectrum of skill sets. And if you're happy and passionate about what you do, you can be that watercolor artist that paints the church scenes and sells them at the parish bazaar every year, whatever. So I definitely endorse that. Anyone can be an entrepreneur as long as you're doing what you love doing.
It's a very good example, Jillian. And I think actually, ironically, I think an artist is an entrepreneur. You know, you're doing something you love, you're creating, and hopefully at some point making a living. Michelangelo, I'm a big fan of him. I've been to see Michelangelo's David in Italy. Blew me away, his statue. And I love the story about how he was actually paid to make that statue. And he spent 3 years working on it. And of course, now 500 years later, everyone queues up to see it, or these days virtually has to see it. But it's just, you know, there's lots of different types of outcomes on entrepreneurs. Writers are entrepreneurs. You know, people have this perception that everyone who's an entrepreneur has to look like Richard Branson. But of course they don't. And the artist analogy you're using, I think, is brilliant, Jillian. Totally agree.
Because it's awful, because I took up painting during the lockdown, but even before that, I remember I was asked to open a local fete with some local artists, and the women I was speaking to, they're all middle-aged women who were doing it as a hobby, whatever. Kids were growing up. And they all said, oh, I do a bit of painting. And I remember to a man, I said, but you're an artist. Oh, not an artist. I'm going, you are an artist. You produced this wonderful picture that I like and I would hang on my wall. And even if I don't like it, you produced it, So I think it's that reluctance to, or the lack of confidence to be able to say, I'm an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is whatever you make it. And actually, I want to even add another little quick story in. You said it doesn't matter what you do as long as you enjoy doing it. You know that old story where this big American arrives up on a little fishing village in Greece, whatever, and at the end of the pier, this little Greek man, he's fishing and gets to talking to him. So what are you going to do now? I'm going to have a siesta, and I'm going to have lunch and have some wine, a siesta, make love to my wife, and then come back and do some more fishing. He said, yeah, what are you fishing for? Oh, these type of, I don't know, very special fish. He said, oh, they command quite a good price. And he said, yeah. He said, oh, but there's more of them out. I only catch maybe one every week, whatever. He said, why don't you buy a boat and go out and get where there's more of these special fish? Yeah. And why don't you get some of your other friends together, get a couple of boats? And then why don't you get more boats? Why don't you get a big, huge, fishing vehicle, and then get a canning thing? And then when you have your big, huge empire and all your ships that are fishing for all these special fish, and you have your canning processing factory, whatever, what do you do then? You sell them all and you retire and you go fishing at the end of the pier. So sometimes people have landed on what they want to do and they don't know it. They don't know it. So you don't have to be Richard Branson. If what you are doing is keeping you afloat in a happy way, and you're happy what you're doing, that's been an entrepreneur, and that's a very successful one, I would say.
Yeah, I love that story. I've heard it in many different forms, and I think the moral of the story is sometimes there's this obsession with, I guess, growing the next Google or the next Facebook, and what people are missing in that idea is that it's actually about the journey. It's about enjoying the process, and it's actually about enjoying your day to day. I think that's got lost somewhere in the mix. I see so many people on things like TikTok, for example, that are just pitching this financial freedom, and they're basically saying, stare at a computer all day, watching stocks and shares, and don't have a life, don't spend any money, don't enjoy yourself, because you won't get financially free if you do that. And they spend 20 years of their life, this very short thing we have, not enjoying what they've already got. And I think that's the thing about, being grateful, isn't it? That's the big thing, I think, these days, mindfulness and being grateful for what you've got.
I think also sometimes there's pressure on people to think, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to set up my own business. I need a big idea. I need the big idea. And you know what? Sometimes you just need an idea. It doesn't have to be the idea. It could be an idea. It could be the same idea as the person down the road, but you execute it better or differently or in your own particular style, or you create another marketplace. So you don't necessarily have to be, coming up with the best new idea in the world. You say, I really like making cakes, or I really like baking, whatever. Maybe I want to run a little bakery. Maybe I want to open up a small artisan bakery, and which may grow or may not, and may supply the multiples or may supply my local shops. But it's gravitate towards that which you love and say, how can I make that into a business? And it's like, interesting. I think at the very start you mentioned blockchain, and blockchain is what I do. And I remember I gave a talk recently to a group of young women in Trinity. It was all about how women can get involved in blockchain. And I told my story, which is kind of a bit quirky, whatever. And then afterwards, somebody said to me, how do I get involved? Actually, a whole group of people. And I said, well, what are you? I'm a lawyer. Would be a lawyer in blockchain. Or I'm an accountant. Be an accountant in blockchain. Just move your things over into this particular sector, which is a subset of fintech, and very exciting. So should I explain what blockchain is actually for your listener watchers?
Yes, I think people would love to understand blockchain. I know it's thrown around a lot, and people would love, I think a lot of my listeners don't understand it. So it would be great to explain it in layman's terms, and then we can get into more detail on it.
Okay, well, I'm going to throw out the first thing that I normally don't throw out, but I will, because Bitcoin is at 35 grand US dollars value at the moment. I think pretty much everybody in the world has heard of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a digital currency, and it's based on a blockchain. And it's not the first blockchain, but it's the first publicly famous blockchain, if you like. Blockchain as a technology existed before. So I just want to say Bitcoin, it's big money at the moment. People are doing a lot of day trading. There's a lot of other coins out there at the moment. So you do know what a blockchain is because you've heard of Bitcoin. So blockchain is a particular technology which is very clever because it does a number of things. It allows people to exchange value online, and that you kind of think, well, I can do it I can do it with my credit card, I can do it online banking, but you're using a trusted intermediary, using a bank. With blockchain, you don't actually need a trusted intermediary. You can do it peer to peer, and before blockchain, you couldn't do that, because if I sent you, digital money, Maria, outside of the traditional banking systems, I could also send that same money to somebody else if you like. I could send a photocopy of a check to you. I could do the same to somebody else. And there's nothing to stop you doing this, what was called a double spend. But the blockchain technology means that you can't do it. It's immutable and it's on the blockchain, on the technology. And what it means is for money, when you're exchanging money, it's like it's a publicly distributed ledger, like a database, but it's publicly distributed. So you can't fake it, basically. And the best example I can give, if you go in with your credit card into a shop and you put your credit card to pay for something, it goes into the machine goes back to your bank account. Does she have enough money? Yes, she does. Go back, say, yes, you do. You put in your PIN, and the bank deducts $10 from your account. So, and everybody trusts the bank. So that's how it works. With something like Bitcoin, instead of going through a bank, Bitcoin is distributed, and other cryptocurrencies are distributed across multiple nodes and multiple ledgers, public ledgers. And I want to give you £10, and I check and I look at the nodes with my wallet. I say, yes, she's got £10 in there. I send it to you, and all those nodes update and subtract the £10 from my wallet and put it into your wallet, or the equivalent thereof. And it means that you can't game. So I don't want to get too technical, but it just means it's immutable. It allows for the transfer of value peer-to-peer without a trusted intermediary. And why that's nice is that you don't really need banks to transfer value. And that's kind of cool. And at its most extreme, I don't wish to sort of confuse people. There's a coin called Dogecoin, which was set up basically by people who like a dog, a certain type of Japanese, I can't remember the name of the dog, it's a funny little dog. And its market cap is like 90 million. And people exchange, like they tip each other, they send each other these little coins because they like the Dogecoin. And it's pure just fun, but there's a value to it. And even Elon Musk has said it's his favorite cryptocurrency coin. And what it does is it changes the whole perception of money, because money before is things that you buy and banks give it to you and you borrow from it. But what if money was passion? What if money was you earned money, whatever kind of cryptocurrency coin it was, because you were passionate about doing what you were doing? Is that too, am I going down a rabbit hole? I think I've gone down a rabbit hole.
No, I think it's interesting, and I've got a few questions coming in for you already. But I mean, just before I ask questions that people are asking, how did you get into this space yourself?
Okay.
How did you end up being a blockchain expert, I guess?
Well, no, I wouldn't say an expert, but advocate and passionate person. I had a very traditional upbringing. I went to college, went to Trinity College in Dublin, and I was hard on the milk run. Went to work for JP Morgan in London as a systems analyst. I spent 3 years there, and then I met my then husband. We went to Australia, another 3 years there. I moved into high tech, as it was called then, now called Fintech PR, and then on to Singapore for 2 years, again, working in the Fintech space. Came back to Ireland and continued on. And then that was fine. So I was working in Fintech, really enjoying it. I was doing a bit of PR, more and more journalism, which I really enjoyed, the writing side of things. And then I hit the crash in 2008. And I had divorce and a crash, lost my house, lost my business, lost everything, a lot of crazy stuff. But I basically ended up, I had a big house, got a cash offer to someone to buy it, and the banks refused consent for me to sell. So I lost everything. There I was, the first female bankrupt under the new laws in 2013, I think it was. And I had nothing. But I also become activated during that time. And I got very angry at people who were saying that the banks had this narrative that people were gaming the system. And I went, people are people. People, do their best. They try to raise money. They try to raise their kids. They try to put food on the table. People generally are not trying to game the system and do pull fast things, and especially not with their family home. That's not really what happens. So I got very angry. Plus also at that stage, there was about once a week, there was at least somebody, typically a man, taking their own life through suicide because of financial failure, because they were shamed. So I became an accidental activist. And long story short, I became bankrupt. And then I brought as a bankrupt, I wasn't allowed to run for public office. It was Victorian archaic law that was still in place. And so I brought the Irish government to the High Court and the Supreme Court, and I argued my constitutional rights were being infringed because I wasn't allowed to run for public office. So I changed the law, and then I ran in European parliamentary elections in 2014. I ran in Ireland South as an independent, had a 6-week run, no money, no party, and I got 11,500 votes. So I was very happy with that. And then my life went quiet. I thought, that's it. That's my life over. I'm done. I'll just go gentle into that dark night. And then I met blockchain. And oh my God, I went, here is what we have. Because the reason I became an accidental actress, I was so angry at the role that banks and financial institutions take in this modern world, especially with the ordinary person. And we know back in the 2008, the banks were bailed out, but the ordinary person was left to flounder. And the system it's wrong now. We're back into like feudal times where inequality's gone crazy, and pandemic has not helped it because more and more the vulnerable have less and less. And the world seems a bit crazy. And blockchain said to me, we can change things. We can change things. We can get rid of banks, or at least make them behave. If you don't want to be an anarchist necessarily, make them behave. But also we can do a lot of the people who are watching, maybe they were in the dot-com boom. The dot-com boom was very interesting, but it was all about innovation and technology. The blockchain boom, as I kind of call it, whatever now, it is about innovation and technology, but it's about making the world a better place. The people who are involved in this space, a lot of them are trying to, get fresh water to people in need, trying to help the unbanked, trying to provide proper land registry options to people who don't have them. Like if they're in slum areas, they don't own their title to their land, although they should. And the identity of the data we own, we all know that Facebook and other social media make money off our data. So how do we invert that around? Because Facebook is not the sharing economy. Facebook shouldn't be making money off my data. There should be an equal. Facebook did a great thing, but if it had shared the largesse, would have done an amazing thing. So there's lots of ways that we can unthink the world, rethink the world, and blockchain is a very powerful tool to do that.
It's you're getting so many questions and a lot of love online, by the way. People loving your story and your honesty about your story too. I mean, going through a divorce and having, going bankrupt and then realizing how the banking system is a little bit not there to support you in the way you had hoped, and then finding blockchain. It's actually well, first of all, thank you for sharing your story. And I think there's a lot of questions going out here about. Let me just put some up. There's one here about, is blockchain, is I think cryptocurrency, maybe I'll start with this one, sorry, Jack. What do you see with Bitcoin? I mean, a lot of people, I especially on TikTok, I see a lot of people pushing cryptocurrency. All the news at the moment I'm seeing is about how, it's going to go to $1 million and, you should buy it now. And all these big companies like the one you work for, JP Morgan, all getting in, right? And everyone's saying it's just, money, money, money. And then there's people online that are talking about at the same time, Robert, I see you, people that have lost money, huge amounts of money on crypto. And I read all the time about people's wallets that are hacked and they've lost it all. What's the truth? Should you get in? Is it just a one big gamble? Is it, are you missing out if you're not getting in? What do you think?
Well, I always say at the very start, I don't give financial advice because I wouldn't follow my financial advice for starters. And secondly, the baseline is you don't put money into something that you cannot afford to lose. So that's a no-brainer. So I do not think, should you sell your house and put it on Bitcoin? No. Had you done that a couple of years ago, would you be a millionaire? Yes. But we might go into another crypto winter and it might crash again. So I'm very reluctant to say put your money into something unless you have extra money, you want to do it. Bitcoin is like the OG, the old gangster of cryptocurrency. It was the first one. I personally believe it is a store of value. I believe that it can't be controlled by governments. It can't be controlled by banks, can't be controlled by bureaucrats. There is a finite number of Bitcoin. There will only ever be 21 million of Bitcoins ever mined. It is divisible up to 18 decimal points, which is why you can then share bits. You don't have to buy one Bitcoin, you can share bits and pieces of it. Do I think it's here for the long run? Yes, I personally do. I genuinely, it's like it's like digital gold, and you can't hack it because because it's on a distributed basis. You can't, the centralized database that can be hacked, you can't do it with Bitcoin. So yes, I genuinely believe in Bitcoin. I have I think one Bitcoin. I earned it over 3 years in little bits here, little bits there. So, there are people who were very lucky back in the day who decided to buy Bitcoin, and they're multimillionaires because by pure virtue of luck. You know what I mean? There's nothing sensible about that, just pure luck. But why it's important, less so, I'm going to invest in it and whatever. It just shows for a way forward where we can look at currencies that are not manipulated by governments, by quantitative easing, by all these things that are happening now. I mean, with all the quantitative easing, while I take a step back and say it's wonderful, the helicopter money that we're getting in the Western world, that's amazing. And that's as a result of quantitative easing, because otherwise, people would be stuffed. They couldn't pay their groceries, whatever. But a byproduct of that is that the value of money goes down the whole time and the amount of debt goes up. So we're kind of living in a world where I think we're on a precipice of it's kind of scary to look at the future of ordinary fiat money because all these strange things are happening. And to have a balancing currency, a cryptocurrency, a digital currency I think it's a positive thing to have. It's generated by maths. It's a maths principle. No one can influence it. So yes, I believe in it. There's also about another 3,000 other coins floating around the place. most of them are, if I may be rude and call them shite coins. They never came to anything. Some of them are good projects. Some of them were, you know, finger in the air stuff that never worked, whatever. That Dogecoin was a pure fun coin, yet it seems to have maintained its value because people put value on it, you know, is what you value. So even though at the start I said the Bitcoin, I use that term because people know about it now because it's hit 35 plus. It's not the be all and end all of stuff. It's what blockchain allows you to do. So I would rather focus on the fact that blockchain allows us to do many new things and exchange values without necessarily having to invest. The only thing I would say, someone said to me recently, like when I said I have my one Bitcoin that I earned over 3 years. And someone said, would you invest in Bitcoin now? If you've got $20 a month, $100 a month, or euros a month, or pounds a month even, spare, why not put it into Bitcoin? You know, if you can afford that, that's a couple of, you know, it's a meal out that no one's going out because restaurants are all closed now. So that's maybe not a bad thing. And just forget about it and maybe look at it in 10 years' time. Don't lose your keys. Look at it in 10 years' time and view it. Maybe it could be a holiday or a car, or it could be a Big Mac and fries because it all blew up, you know. So the cryptocurrencies themselves. Yeah, I'm not a financial expert. It's exciting to see it, but
I always lose my keys. So I see myself buying Bitcoin and then not being able to get access to it. And when you've lost those keys, you've lost it, right? So a lot of people have lost keys. They're the millions that are inaccessible.
Yeah, I think what'll happen, I'm the same because I grew up with a generation where if I lost stuff, I could go to the bank, go to the business, whatever. So I'm older than you, but I have that comfort, like I can go to the institution that owns whatever it owns and regain my path or regain access. But increasingly, and actually I'm going to be interviewing someone next week, there are products coming online that will make use of cryptocurrencies more user-friendly because the original people who got involved and they said, your keys, your bank. That's very powerful, except if you lose keys, like Simon does and like I do. So, but there'll be more and more products online that will allow you to have your own bank, but maybe keep your keys in some sort of curated service that if you get stuck, they'll help you find it again.
I think that's the thing that still confuses me about Bitcoin. You know, if all keys can be copied, and surely there's a business in recovering keys, therefore there's a business in copying keys, right? It can't be that unhackable, surely.
Ooh, well, I know that there was a story recently here in Ireland where somebody, I think it was a drug dealer, who had he was caught for his drug dealing, but he also had so many Bitcoin and he was worth about 20 million or 30 million, whatever. But he lost his keys. But I do know there was a cryptocurrency company based out of the UK that said they could hack it if they had enough money. If they were given about 19 million, they could hack it to get the last million. So I don't know. It's you can try. It's yeah.
So getting asked, how does it get mined? What?
Okay. Well, the reason for mining and different cryptocurrencies do different things. The reason for mining Bitcoin was to slow down its production. And so you have to, miners in the early days and still do now, have to do these very vast computational exercises. And the one who completes it first wins the prize. And then they are allowed to mine the block, which has the transaction, and then they get the reward in terms of the Bitcoin. And it's kind of like a false conceit in some ways, because it's kind of confusing. People say, well, why would why need to do that? It was purely to slow down the processing of the blocks because they would go too fast. And then you compare that with a UK-based company called Electronium. And they started off and they did their cryptocurrency, and they did mobile. They called it mobile mine. You could do it on your phone. You didn't need to have a big, powerful computer or racks of computers out in China, whatever. And but it was more a conceit, because what they changed it around was more how they actually allocated each tranche of currency. And now what they do is they have nodes across the world. And most of these nodes are managed by NGOs and charities. And in time, they're going to use some universities too as well. And these nodes, they actually run the public ledger. So it was just a conceit to slow down the delivery of the coins. It's not it's different point of proof of work, proof of stake, delegated proof of stake, lots of different ways to mint and distribute your coins.
Mm. And Argo, I'm getting asked about Argo. And what's the
I don't know them.
Oh, okay. Let me just put this. Argo,
mining
and their stocks are rapidly increasing. I guess they're the mining company, right? There's these organizations, and I mean on the mining side again, I kind of understand some of these things, but I want you to answer it because I want to hear your view. But do you see the mining business? I mean, there's 21 million coins to mine. When will they run out of coins to mine?
I think it's in 2050, I think the last lot, because each 4 years is the halvening, where they divide in half the reward of the coins per block mined. So it'll become more and more expensive to do it towards the end. Again, just to slow it down. I mean, I think I can't remember how, there could be like 2/3 of all coins already mined, if you like, already out there, because there's a slower and slower amount being produced as we go towards the tail end of it. And of course, I mean, over time, there's lots of more than yourself, hard disks and wallets that people have lost the keys to. They'll never get them back. And, you know, that's, they may never be 21 million in actual circulation because they're lost or gone, or
there's no one to reset those things and say, right, use, let's put them back in the system or give them to charity, or there's nothing that can be done.
I don't think so.
Can't that be the downfall? Isn't that the Achilles heel in this model? You know, if there's coins, it's like, I mean, I think there's two Achilles heel. Maybe one is, I mean, you can print more money. You can dilute stock. If stock gets too expensive for the individual, you can dilute it so more people can participate, right? But if there's an end to gold or an end to oil, isn't that the end of the line?
Well, the difference with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies too as well, they're mostly divisible. I say up to 18 points in the case of Bitcoin. That's a lot of Satoshi to share with other people. So, and I even maybe in the future times, and you know, when we're all living in space, whatever, maybe you can divide it even further. I'm not quite sure. Maybe you could tokenize a Satoshi, you know, so you end up with more and more divisible amounts. And because it's maths, you can endlessly divide something.
So there's someone buying into what you're talking about there. I mean, the shark is a bit controversial on my channel, but talking about like how the algorithm gets very powerful, and you were kind of touching on this a minute ago, weren't you? When you were saying you don't know what's going to happen to traditional currency. Do you think, you know, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, like the US dollar, which I guess is the central kingpin of the financial system, is going to get replaced by a currency like Bitcoin?
I think so. Well, I mean, the only reason why a dollar is the reserve currency of the world is because when people stopped, you know, the gold standard, and especially when Nixon threw it out in 71, but people stopped, when Europe after the two wars, the currency is no longer pegged to the gold in the bank, and then they pegged it instead to the US dollar, so it became the reserve currency. And who knows? I mean, I can't see it being there forever. It's an artificial reserve currency, if you like. And with quantitative easing now, I don't know. I mean, I'm surely not an economist, and I'm not an expert at any of these fields. As an ordinary Joe blog, I see things will change. I'm not quite sure how, but I can see it more happening. Like, you know how with the pandemic has made us look very local. We're all shopping local and doing stuff local and supporting local businesses. So rather than going to Amazon, we try to buy our books from our local bookstore and this type of stuff. So increasingly, and this is also very old-fashioned as well as new-fashioned, communities, I think, will operate together. So if you work in a community, you might have a community dollar. And when I say dollar, I just mean that as a community coin. That, you know, so if I have this community coin, I spend it in your cake shop, I get 20% discount, but it keeps some money in a community. So I think we might find a lot more examples of, you know, local coins being used locally. So it just, there's a company called Fuse that does that. They have a few projects in the UK, actually. Roost is one of them, where it's a rent-based coin, community-based project. So I think in the future, we may end up being more local. You know, I think that could, as well as being hyper local, you know, it could be, and local also, it might mean just a local community, as in you live in the same 10 square mile radius, whatever. But it might also be that you all read Harry Potter books, and that's a community. And I could be in Thailand, or I could be in Hong Kong or Ireland, and that's a community that we exchange Harry Potter tokens because you know, we value them the same way. And
do you see an up-and-coming cryptocurrency that people should be looking at? And what do you think of the Facebook currency when it eventually gets allowed?
I'm so, you know, I shouldn't have started with Bitcoin, actually, because I never do that, because I'm really a technology person. It's so hard to know. I think Bitcoin is your standard, so I definitely think that. There are quite a few other projects. The EOS project is very well backed, and I do some work in that. And I say, well, Electronium, I've got like 4 million people, and they're looking to help the unbanked across the emerging world, including Africa. With the Libra project, well, they call it now Diem. They've changed the name of it, and they've changed the whole. They're trying to distance it from the Facebook people. When that was announced first, it was interesting because everybody in the cryptocurrency hated Facebook because they blocked all the ads for anyone who tried to do anything ICOs or any kind of projects. And then they launched their own cryptocurrency. It was really like monopoly, or it was kind of strange stuff, and anti-competitive activity. And on the one hand, it was good because it brought people to the attention of ordinary people that it's not necessarily used for the dark net and for drugs and for all the stuff. Anyway, as we know, cash is much more nefarious than cryptocurrencies. A lot more money is laundered during the banks than with their cryptocurrency. So Libra, I mean, more interesting is PayPal, I suppose. I mean, it ducked out of the Libra stuff and then announcing that they're going to be buying and selling cryptocurrencies on PayPal. So that's, bringing it to the mainstream.
And just before we bring on our next guests and talk to them about their startup, I mean, you mentioned there, fairly, I'm sorry, we've gone down the rabbit hole of
it's my fault. It's my fault.
No, it's fascinating, and people are streaming questions crazy about it. But what on the technology side do you think, because I know you talk to a lot of high profile people about technology, what kind of nuggets of insight have you got about the technology side of things and how it's playing out?
Well, I just published my first book of non-fiction interviews with some of the leaders in the space, people like John McAfee, that people may know from the antivirus software, Andreas Antonopoulos, he's called Mr. Bitcoin, the president of Liberland, who's also a cryptocurrency advocate. That's a new micronation, and lots of people in between. And there are lots of technology using the core tenets of blockchain, which is immutability, transparency. What else is there? I don't think. Well, you can protect your own identity. There's a whole rake of things. Is security on the blockchain, and it's those tenets, especially for things like transactions, because we can just do things like microtransactions, which is great. Putting your identity, proving who you are, having that, so you're not reliant on a bank telling you who you are. You have, this is my identity and it's known. Or for example, if you own a house and you have your deeds to your house, that's on the blockchain. No one can take that from you, like they did in Rio from the slums, or like they did in Honduras when they just took it off all the people. Said, "Oh, your deeds don't matter for nothing." There's a lot of ways that the technology can be used, and including the whole idea of our data. Because people talk about universal basic income, a lot of people push back against that and they go, "Oh, I don't want that." Whatever. What if it could be based on, let's just say, for example, the big social media companies had like a contest and paid your local government to enter into a country. And as a result, the money they paid was given to everybody in return for their data. So all of a sudden, your data earns you your UBI. And that might pay for your rent or something. So there's different ways of using the technology, and it's coming thick and fast. And a lot of very innovative people in this space.
I think it's interesting. I'm a big believer in universal income. I know it needs to be ironed out, let's call it. But I do feel that with the way technology is taking away jobs, and how companies like Google make so much profit, but they're employing a lot less people, that they're making more profit than ever. There needs to be a balancing act where I'm not saying tax them more, but certainly there needs to be a system to give people the freedom to go and contribute to society. I have a big issue with, particularly in England, the social system. I almost fell into it myself at 15, but they basically trap you. They give you money to not work, and if you dare work, you lose that money. So sometimes you dare not work, and I think the system is broken. There's 2.1 million people on some sort of social benefit in the UK, and it traps people. And so, but I love universal income. To me, is like flipping that on its head and saying, you're not trapped by the system. The system is there to help you. And yes, if you can go and earn money, then great. But we're not going to penalise you for going out there and contributing to society. And there's many ways to contribute to society. It's not just earning income, isn't it? So anyway, I love your idea there. There's something. Is anyone actually installing that? I know a lot of countries like Sweden and Norway, they're trying out universal income. Is there anyone leveraging blockchain?
But yeah, I do know that Eric Lonergan and Mark Bly wrote a book called Angronomics. Eric is based in the UK. He's a macro hedge fund manager, and Mark is a Scottish lecturer in the US now. But they wrote a book called Angronomics, and that was one of their ideas. They said, let the big social media giants pay to enter a marketplace, and let them pay for the data. And that data is universally distributed to everybody, regardless. And so everybody gets there. And maybe it would be enough to pay for rent. Imagine if your rent paid for just for your UBI, for your data.
Yeah, I mean, I find the data point really fascinating. I mean, there was a whole thing, the Royal Free Hospital, which is quite near me, they got into a lot of trouble because they gave data to Google to try and figure out, medical issues that Google could solve or at least pinpoint through algorithms. And it was actually quite exciting, the potential of what they were doing together. But I think, of course, giving data to Google, a private company, that it doesn't sit well. I personally don't care if my data is given away. As long as I can take my name off it, maybe. But at the end of the day, if that data is going to solve a medical problem, or it's going to help, for example, reduce the impact of COVID on society, I really don't mind my data being. I don't mind being pinpointed. Where am I walking? Who did I walk past? I don't really care. And so, but you say, I like the idea that my data has value, and let's be honest about it. And that companies out there bid for that data, and maybe medical companies in particular, who make a lot of money off. Frankly, they're making money off COVID. They're making money left, right, and centre from medical issues, and they can leverage our data to make that medication more effective. Then I say, yeah, absolutely. Why not make that give that income to people? Share the benefits with people that don't have an income.
There's a big, huge thing with the DNA, and you can get your DNA sequenced for small money, and it was at 21andMe and the other one thing I read. They're in big trouble because they're not under regulation, and so you pay whatever money, but it's a loss leader, but you tick the box, say, can we use your data for your DNA for science? Tick the box. They sell that for many multiples of whatever you paid. So there's a move going on that people should. Yes, be able to sell their DNA, but sell their DNA. So, because apparently a big tranche of data was sold recently to one of the big pharmas for millions, and it was basically 10 grand per person's DNA.
Right.
What a difference that might have made to the people who could have earned that, half it, So there are moves.
Someone, sorry to interrupt you, someone who invests in startups, you're touching on something I've seen, companies like 21andMe, I've seen basically their whole pitch is the data. They're real business. McDonald's never sold burgers. McDonald's was in the landlord business. It was in the land ownership business. These companies aren't really in the DNA testing business. They're in the data collection business. Yeah. And so, and the thing is, it's a bit like Facebook. I mean, I think at the beginning, give Facebook a break for us. One person in the world could give them a break for a second. I don't know if they set out to deceive people on data at the beginning, but over time, as they realized the value of data, they certainly didn't make it obvious that data was going to get used to help advertisers and so on. I think that going forward, people are starting to realize how valuable their data is, and there's an income from that. I think that's a really interesting idea you've highlighted there.
And there are many blockchain startups that will offer you the opportunity to sell your data, and you sell directly to the advertiser. So that's coming on stream too as well.
Yeah. Kind of the basics of it's like I was watching people that had gone and taken the trials for COVID, which frankly I admire people that have gone and taken that vaccine, in the trial phase to try and help humanity, and they got paid quite rightly as well. Like they've taken a risk and they've helped humanity. Yeah. And so, there's something in that idea you've got there, Jillian. I really like it. Well, I could talk to you forever, actually, I've realized. And we've just started to scratch the surface, I think, on technology. I think we should have a longer conversation just about the technology side and the opportunities. Because one of the things we're trying to do on this channel is give people ideas of businesses they could start. And if they read between the lines of the 4 or 5 things you've talked about today, there's businesses in there. There's really exciting businesses in there that can be created to make humanity better and to provide universal income through blockchain and all of those things. And so, yeah, thank you so much. But that's my next guests are kindly waiting in the wings.
Yeah, patient guests.
Let's bring them on. Guys, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining. How are you?
Very good, very good. We were fascinated here listening to your conversation. So we could have been watching for many, many more hours.
Yeah, well, I definitely I love talking to Jillian. She's a genius. She won't say that. She's very humble.
Hardly.
She's very knowledgeable. Let's say that. But you guys are doing fantastic things in the women's health space. So why don't you start off by telling the audience a little bit about what you're doing, and then we can always talk about how you can put it all on blockchain afterwards.
Sounds great. So I'll kick it off a little bit, but I'll also love for Sujay to give a brief intro about himself. I am Adriana Vazque. I am co-founder and CEO of Lilu. And we started Lilu because while motherhood is special, it isn't always easy. And at Lilu, we're building a suite of tech-enabled products designed to make life easier for new moms. And we started by making pumping more efficient. We launched our first product, the Lilu Massage Bra, which is an FDA Class I device that tackles the notorious inefficiencies of breast pumps. It uses massage technology that we created and is now patented. It uses pneumatics to help moms pump 30 to 50% more milk every single session. And we started shipping in September of 2019. We launched direct to consumer. And in 2020, we saw quite amazing growth despite the pandemic. And then in terms of a little bit of my background, I have a master's in integrated product design from UPenn. I did a bachelor's in maths with computer science from MIT, and I strongly believe that we need to continue to invest in building and developing women's and maternal health. I'd love for also Sujay to give you a little bit about how he came to be interested in this particular space. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us, Simon. It's an incredible opportunity, and I think I posted this on LinkedIn. I really love your mission to help 1 million people, and I hope I can join you in that mission as well. So my name is Sujay. I am the CTO/COO and co-founder of Lilu. I hail from India, which is where I'm at right now. I have a background in electrical engineering. I did my undergrad here in India, and I moved to the US to pursue my master's at the University of Pennsylvania as well, which is where I met Adriana. And in terms of how Lilu came about and how I got interested, I actually, like, coming from a third world country, I didn't even know what a breast pump was, to be honest, like before I met Adriana. So when Adriana mentioned this idea of, trying to understand the problems that new moms have to go through with breast pumping and the breastfeeding process, I was intrigued, but I had no clue. So I just went home, I did my research, if to you and like everybody who's watching, if you go to Google right now and you just type in breastfeeding is or breast pumping is, and the first few recommendations that Google throws at you is, breast pumping is painful, breast pumping is stressful, it's not working out. And when Google is throwing only the negative information in your face, you know that there's something really wrong with the process, right? And so, just a little bit, an hour or 2 hours of research, just going over Google, I already knew that there was something terribly wrong with this industry, and something that we as entrepreneurs and we as technologists needed to fix. And that's basically how Lilu came about.
Wow.
Yeah, that is a wow. Yeah, I've got a 3-year-old, and so I have seen the problem that you're talking about, and it's a big problem. And I'm kind of blown away that you have a product that can increase that pumping stage by 30 to 50%. That's just crazy. So how did you identify this as the problem? And I know this isn't the only thing you're doing, right?
No, the goal really is to build up this line of products, and right, what we found is that we have a very interesting customer base at a very pivotal moment in their lives, and they need a myriad of support, right? So we started with breast pumping and lactation because it's one of the most stressful things that your child's nutrition depends on it, and the mother is the only person that's able to provide that nutrition. So it becomes really, really stressful. So at that moment in time, if we can start to provide some of the other key pillars of support, that's where we really think that there's a big gap and opportunity in the space, and where this can really grow really big. But yeah, why did we start with this particular problem? Just kind of a little bit of background and history, right? Obviously for millions or thousands of years, right? Humans have been breastfed, but something really interesting happened last century, right? Where formula was on the rise, women started to be more participant in the workforce, and at some point, right, we had moms coming back to work really, really quickly shortly after giving birth, but the science and research around breast milk and the benefits of breast milk were lacking. So that started to change. now it's almost like a given that most moms will try to initiate breastfeeding, right? Given that there's a lot more research about how there's immense benefits to it. In some ways, even this pandemic kind of continue to highlight why breastfeeding is so important for immunity protection and all these things. And there's even benefits that are for mothers, like lower risk of breast cancer and ovarian cancer and things like that, that are less known about. But there's all these support or things that signal that we should be supporting breastfeeding. However, the lifestyle of the modern mom is fully incompatible with it. Then the breast pumping industry came to rise like up until like the 80s, even like really maybe even early 90s. Breast pumps were really just a medical device that were used for moms at the hospital where their baby couldn't latch or other things like that. So breast pumps, in a way, like they've been around for hundreds of years as well, but in the way that they're used today are really new. And something that I think that has also happened is like we are so used to technology making our lives easier, and I really, really believe like that's the way it should be, right? So when a new mom is presented with this machine that is like, oh, this will help me take the milk out so I can give it to the baby, you expect it to work, right? That's what we expect our computers to work, our cars to work, all of these things. But breast pumps kind of just like that, they didn't keep up with things, like how things were evolving. So when you actually try on a breast pump, there's a learning curve. There's a big learning curve for breastfeeding already, but the pump even more, right? Because there needs to be all this like physical stimulus to the breast. It's a very hormonal driven process that many people don't understand. Like, why would you need to understand until you have to do it? But then what we found is like, okay, moms have this expectation that they're going to breastfeed, that yes, maybe it's not going to be like the easiest thing ever, but that everybody does it, right? So like, it should be natural, it should be easy. But the technology is basically super archaic. It's not designed to just like, make it easier, comfortable. And what happens is that then kind of like this generation of women have been super disappointed by this technology that they have available. And on top of it, there's, again, $100 things happening, right? Like work pressures, career pressures, lack of medical support and advice. So all of a sudden, you're kind of like left scrambling, figuring everything out on your own. But we figured that, if we start with the premise that there's very high initiation breastfeeding rates, there's a massive drop of the continuation because moms are not able to continue. And the big gap of what's happening is around 2/3 of moms say that the reason they quit is because they can't produce enough milk, right? So nobody wants to see their baby starve. It's very, very, for moms, they feel really, really guilty if it's not working out. And for the partners, I really believe also, right, that something has changed, right? Like it used to be something that most women suffered about in silence, but now I think the partners like really, really, right, they want to help. They don't want to see their partner struggle. They care equally, right? So we decided that if we could start with technology, right? Let's see what are the ways that we can help moms do that more easily. And we found that it resonated. It resonated immediately. Moms told us like, yes, I want this. And that I'll tell you just a quick story of why, when we started to find that there was something here, it was like really eye-opening. We put up like a posting, like a little like Facebook, like a blurb or post about like, we're testing this idea. We have this like Frankenstein bras that like do breast massage. Would you like to try them? And overnight we had hundreds of sign-ups, and we had moms that were signing up to drive 30 minutes, an hour to pump in front of strangers. And they would arrive and they would be like, here I am, tell me where to sit down and ready to pump. And, would start undressing, and I would be like, wait, like, let's build some rapport here. Let me interview you first. But that to me told me, wow, like these women really, really want to see innovation because, like who does that, right? I mean, to be willing to be that exposed in front of like strangers just on the promise that there might be something that will help them, that is huge. And that's why we started there. It's a bigger problem than just technology. And that's why, again, with Lilu, there's all these other things that we want to do, but one step at a time. And we really believe that with this first piece of technology that we've developed, we can make a big difference.
Do you know, I want to jump in there. It's so interesting. I'm 2 children of my own, and I breastfed them both maybe between 6 and 9 months each. And the interesting thing is that people don't tell you as a young mom that breastfeeding, although it's the most natural thing in the world, it's difficult to get the hang of it first. It is very difficult. It's not easy. And the first, when the milk comes in, that first couple of weeks are, oh my God, it drives you nutty. And I have a number of terrestrial radio shows here in Ireland, and I've interviewed different groups that do breastfeeding associations, so that people, they buddy up with a breastfeeding buddy. So they say, oh my God, I won't latch, or, you know, and you don't have to be Dolly Parton to produce enough milk. You know, it's all these things. But what I really like what you're doing is, so there needs to be education. Also here in Ireland, I don't know about the UK and Ireland, we have very low breastfeeding rates, which is shocking because we are a developed country. And we know in Africa, there's also very low rates, which is catastrophic because formula is too expensive. And, you know, the most natural thing is to have the mothers feed the children and not put them onto the formula. Yeah. But what I love is you're bringing technology into the solution, because the first step is to teach mums it's not easy. And you need your breastfeeding buddy, whatever, you need that thing to get you through it. But then also, if you're a working mum, how do you balance, you know, expressing milk, and how do you do it comfortably? How do you engage your partner? So, you know, maybe you express the milk and then you hand the bottle over to your partner and say, off you go, darling, I'm going back to sleep. So I love that idea. I love it. It's brilliant.
I think it's definitely, it's also a problem I personally experienced, but I was interested in, you know, what you see as the problems in your business. What can we do to help you, I guess, is what I'm thinking. In the time that we've got together, I want to find ways to support you. What do you need from me and, you know, Jillian, and maybe the community listening? What can we do to help you right now? What's the issues?
Yeah, well, thanks a lot. I mean, one of the first things for us is, like, you know, we're building brand awareness. We always take kind of these forums as an opportunity to ask people to, you know, follow us, check our Instagram. We put out a lot of great educational content. So if you know any moms, any new moms, share with them at WearLilu. That's at WEARLILU. So that's hopefully a very easy ask. But in terms of just like kind of like business questions, something that we found is, right. I mean, we started what we thought would be the hardest thing, which, like, get the hardware out there, and eventually want to expand into, you know, connecting these moms to lactation support through telemedicine. It's not only about lactation support. We think, again, it's so important because it does feed into mental and emotional well-being. But, you know, we need postpartum support, postpartum doulas, midwives, mental support specialists. So that's the direction in which we're going, as well as, you know, like, again, we know that our Lilu moms need more things, and we can be, you know, the ones that connected. Like, we imagine this like one-stop shop to get the products you need and then to connect to the medical device specialist. But the question is, like, how do you do that? You know, when you're thinking about your business and expanding, right, kind of always have these like points to, you know, like, launch the second product or expand globally, right? We have a lot of demand to expand to Europe, to Japan, to Singapore. So I guess that's just a question in general, you know, to all as a serial entrepreneur, or just all the different entrepreneurs you talk to. How do you advise, you know, like, what are those, when did you decide, like, to expand, I guess, like, you know, customer base or expand product line? Like, what are some of the heuristics or measures?
You have a very specific niche marketplace, because I only want to know about breastfeeding when I'm breastfeeding. So, you know, you go after the women who are pregnant, about to have the babies. But it's such a niche, because once I'm finished rearing my child, I actually don't need to know about your product. So it's that early moments before they get pregnant, and it's all those forums. I would suggest. So Simon, what about?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know. Well, my own personal experience, when our son was born, my wife really wanted to breastfeed, and initially she couldn't. It didn't work at first, and she was very upset. And there was a little bit of shaming initially, like there was a sense of guilt. I think that's a whole group of people that need to be recognised. And I think that actually my wife in the end, she did breastfeed, but she actually had a lot of pressure from the midwife just to take formula, just to say. But anyway, I agree with what Jillian just said, and I mentioned that story of my own personal experience because I think that we read a lot of books. I am actually dyslexic. My wife read a lot of books to me about, you know, a lot of you know, what to do when expecting, those types of books. You know, if you can do partnerships with these materials, I mean, I'm a big fan of bringing back libraries in the UK. I think they're in real trouble. You know, but partnering up, taking out those books and making sure you get that information to them. But you know, marketing your product is actually a marketer's dream, to Jillian's point, because you kind of know your demographic. And in my view, a large part, you know, in the UK, for example, it should be an NHS service. It should be a part of what they recommend as one of the tools in the toolbox to help potential parents. If they were smart about it, they would see what you're doing as a way of supporting your parent and make it part of the, you know, 20 options. I don't want to force anybody to do anything, including breastfeed. You know, I don't want to, but here's the options for you, and here's one of the tools in the toolbox to help you with this difficult thing that easy is to Jillian's point, as you think. But as far as the second product goes, I mean, on the business side, I have an opinion on this. And basically, I think you've always got to be very careful when launching a second product, especially if you haven't really kind of tapped out your existing product market. Because there's a lot, I think, to do in getting the existing product in the system and figuring out the relationships you need to make that happen. So, for example, a relationship with the NHS. You know, once you've got that relationship with the NHS, and once, for example, they are trusting you and your product and they're recommending it, and, you know, in partnership with them, you are supporting young mothers and young fathers and making a real impact. It's much easier to launch a second product into that niche than you're trying to launch two products into two separate niches, or even worse, a new product into the existing niche.
Yeah.
That's my quick thoughts. A lot of it does depend on the second product. I just interviewed someone who started on my podcast show they did a business called Pip and Nuts. And when she launched the business, she basically started with nuts in a bag, and it did really, really well. And then she thought, okay, you know, I'm going to do oat milk. I'm going to do almond milk. And it's nuts, same thing, nuts sourced and into milk. So she thought it was the same thing. It wasn't until she started distributing that she realized it's a different part of the supermarket. It requires different delivery methods because it has to be chilled. It requires different packaging methods. It requires different regulatory requirements and different marketing strategy. So it wasn't part of her, say, existing business, although it had nuts and you thought that was the core. Actually, that wasn't the core. The core was the packaging she did, the marketing she did was all around, you know, grab and go products, right? So it depends on what you're thinking of as a second or third product. But I wouldn't that hole if I was you.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I mean, that's we're thinking, like, that's why we've been kind of like patient. We do know that for this first product, we've barely scratched the surface. And I mean, in terms of, you know, you never know. So sometimes I put out these questions like that. One of the studies around how breast massage really helps increase breast milk production was done by the NHS. So, you know, we're always looking for partners for potentially furthering clinical evidence and building up a body of clinical evidence. So, you know, if in your audience or you know anybody at the NHS that might be interested, you know, like, because I really think that this could be, like you said, it should be another tool in a mom's toolkit that is given to them at the hospital. Because it can really make a huge difference for moms, especially the earlier they start using it in their breastfeeding and breast pumping journey. That's when it can, you know, be pivotal. But I guess also, like,
I just want to add something. Sorry to interrupt you, but I want to make sure I don't lose the thought that might be useful to you. Okay. The one caveat I would say about starting another product would be you can partner with other products. So, for example, yes, I think you need to get in with the NHS. I think you need to create a good case study. I think you need to get testimonials from parents that appreciate you. But I think what Jillian just said links back to what I'm about to say, which is, you know, you've got, actually, my wife managed to breastfeed for 2 years. Every single day I think about it, it's like she deserves an award. It was just incredible. 2 years old, and my son was still being breastfed. But so let's say it's 2 years is the outer limit, and, you know, however long people want to do it for is up to them, right? But the point I'm trying to make is you don't want to lose them as a relationship as soon as they stop using your kit.
Yeah.
So I just invested in a business called Peas and Pod, and they're basically targeting and helping parents who are now having to teach children at home or entertain their children at home to educate and be in touch with nature. It's called Peas and Pod, and basically they're targeting 2 to 7 year olds. Now, maybe that one is one example, but I reckon there's probably hundreds of products that you could team up with that are positive and you align with your branding and align with your moral code. that you could keep your relationship going with the person you built a trust with your product in the early days. That partnership could be really interesting. So you can elongate the relationship, and maybe you're taking them all the way up until they're adults. That you've got a relationship with that person, and just an idea to put it out there for you to think about. I didn't want to interrupt you. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure.
Well,
by the way,
yeah.
about your company, LILU, folks. I put it in the link below the broadcasts. But LILU, you can Google it. So a lot of people are asking me on TikTok right now about how to connect to you guys. Sorry, carry on.
I want to invite you onto my radio show in Dublin City FM after this, because I'd love to spend a whole half hour talking about these whole issues.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love that. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, something else. I interrupted you to make my point. I do apologize. Did you have something else you wanted to mention or ask?
I mean, I had a question that's a little bit more general, but I guess also for the audience of entrepreneurs, I thought it could be helpful. So we've actually been so incredibly lucky in terms of, we've been for a long time a small team, a team of 2. We just recently started hiring, so it's growing. But really, we couldn't have gotten to where we are without the help of advisors, mentors. And more, there's more networks to support entrepreneurs. But I think that as we continue to move forward and grow, I think how do you strike that balance between continuing to build a network and fostering your existing relationships? I guess I question, how and where do you focus your energy as a founder, as a CEO or COO? And I guess I'm just curious, right? Especially, when you're building so many, we have one company and it still feels, like sometimes we spread out too thin and we can't give the attention to some of our amazing mentors or advisors and networks. Yeah. But I mean, we also have the business to run and, goals to hit. How do you suggest to strike that balance, right? And as an investor also, right? Because there's investors that we'd love to, some of them want to be super involved, some less so. What's the right balance?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think it's quite a complex answer because a lot of it depends on your own personal resources and what you like to do. Jillian and I were talking about this before you guys came on. So often entrepreneurs, we get caught up in what we should do as opposed to what we would like to do, as if we should be doing, for example, big round table discussions about where the business could go and get lots of people in the room to have their opinion. And that all sounds good, but, one, would you enjoy it? And 2, is that really what you need? You kind of got a product, you know what you need to do. You need a lead in the NHS. And by the way, I just want to throw someone up that's made a good point. James just mentioned NCT, which is a big thing here in the UK. And I think it's all these kind of mother-parent training groups. I went to NCT myself before. I would say actually NCT was more useful to me than the hospital. And so, NCT groups are a really good target group for you to get in with. So James, thank you for throwing that up there. But I mean, back to your question, as my doorbell rings. Hold on, guys. I'm going to be very unprofessional now. You can speak amongst yourself while I answer my door.
Yeah, of course.
My amazing who breastfed for 2 years is now also answering the door for me. Great. But yeah, I mean, I do think that this is a good question that's hard to answer. And I'll give you my quick view, but maybe we need to talk about it a little bit more depending on your resources. I would first of all say, as someone that's both been an investor and had investors, sometimes investors want to feel valuable, but it doesn't mean they are. Yeah. And I think sometimes you've got to look at your priority list of what you actually need and then who can provide that to you. So I always used to split the role. I have, someone that would like to talk to people internally, let's say existing investors, and say, look, this is what we're doing this month, in a newsletter format perhaps. And then, but these are the things we need. You can put it in the email. And then those people can reply with, oh, you need a contact at NCT. I know the person that founded that and can help you. Then great, right? But these are the things you need. What you don't want is to open the door to investors flooding you with opinions and telling you what to do and then getting offended when you don't do it. You gotta be a bit cautious with that. On the other side, when you know what you need, you also want to be proactive and go and find the people that are going to help you. right? You know the people out there. If you're missing marketing, then you go find a marketing person that can join your board of advisors, and you go find the bit that you're missing and bring that in. Then it might be that person is only needed for 3-6 months to polish up the bit of the business that isn't right, and I think that's perfectly fine. But that's how I've always done it. I've always looked, and I used to do every month group calls. So I'd say, right, anyone that wants to help, we will have a phone call every Friday at 4. I will tell you what we're doing and what's going on. I'll explain the things we need. And then I was actually always shocked who on the other end of the line actually had the solution to the problem that I thought. Because maybe the lawyer that invested in you think they know law, but you don't realize that they've got a friend who runs NCT. So there is always that. That's why I also like the email format, because you can ask the questions even of the lawyer that invested in you. You think they can only help you with law stuff, and then you suddenly realize they've got another access to something that you do need. But just that's my quick advice. I don't know if it's useful, if I've explained it very well, because I tried to do it quickly, but is it useful?
Yeah, no, it's helpful. I mean, I learned a lot from how others do it. I love this idea of a monthly call, or we're better now about sending monthly emails with asks. We always have an ask, and it's actually been fascinating to see who steps up on different occasions to be like, I know someone, I can do this, I can share these with somebody I know, and that's been really helpful. So that is something also that we recommend now to other founder friends.
I think Simon's 100% right on that, because with age too, as well, as the oldest person here, it's amazing how many contacts you pick up. So, that as that lawyer friend, I'm not saying that lawyer friend is old, but you never know when people like to be asked, B, people like to help, and C, they especially like to be able to do introductions. They're very nice when they say, oh, I know somebody in that space, or I'm friends with that person. And if you don't ask, they won't be able to help you. But I think that's a super, super cool thing. Ask open questions, open advice, not just what is the legal thing for me to do here.
Yeah.
Oh, really advice from Simon.
And I think your one group I would definitely cultivate and talk to more would be the mothers that have used your product. I would make them part of the business and make them part of the community, even on the business build side. So, I'm getting a lot of feedback from people on here that, positive and negative. Some people are saying, again, like I was saying, you don't want to force people to breastfeed, blah, blah, blah. I would involve those voices. I would let them be a part of the conversation, because I think they could be your strongest ambassadors. I think the person who's just had a child and you've helped them, there's nothing. I can think of the 3 people that helped me and my wife during my son's early months. I'll never forget them. They were there to help us. That's one of the hardest things I've ever experienced. I built businesses. I tell you, it's damn easy compared to bringing up a little baby. So easy. And so, and I used to always say building a business was hard until I had a child. So, every single one of them deserves an award, and a massive every year from the Queen award. And anyone else doing anything else, I think it's secondary. But that aside, I think including that community, I don't know if you are, but including them in the business build piece, I think could be really powerful for you.
Yeah, no, we started. I mean, we started with a community of those beta testers were the first ones that Then we launched pre-orders, and they were having their second babies. They were some of the first ones to order, and they still send referrals. And we're so happy that now we just hired 2 people on our marketing team, one for growth and one for community and social media. And they're both Lilu Bra users. So that for us is, it speaks the world about that what we're doing makes a difference and that people believe in it. So we're really excited about this year, because that's how we were kicking off the year, with these 2 new teammates that are moms that believed in the product, that used it, that had constructive feedback, but a great experience and all of it. So for us, I really, really believe that's going to be transformative for us this year. But you're right. And I mean, hearing the customer and knowing that that's also something tricky about. I mean, you said some people are saying, yeah, you don't want to force people to breastfeed. Absolutely, right? So we know that we can't be everything for everyone, but just being very in tune with, we know it's not easy, right? We don't want to be one of those one more people or group adding pressure of this is what you need to do and this is the right way to do it. Absolutely not. Everybody has their own journey, being able to respect that. But knowing that what we have is valuable for the moms that have chosen to do it. And but I mean, that is something like even that, you know, striking a balance there. So I think all this year, maybe because it's the new year, it's all about what's the right balance. But you know, in the end, we have a business to run here that we know is also making a big impact for many, and that it's just one piece of the puzzle, right? If breastfeeding is difficult, it's not only because the lack of technology, but the lack of support through organizations, governments, education, legislation. So lots of work to be done in that field. We picked the one area where we know we can make a difference, which is technology.
Is there a personal reason, Andrea, why you're doing this?
I mean, as a woman, and being so passionate about product, and I love the intersection of physical and digital objects. And there's a really wonderful book called Enchanted Objects, and it was when like there was this like craze about IoT, but I really think it's much more than that, right? I mean, there's just some products that are enhanced with technology, and I think there's so much that could be done for health in general, but like women's health in particular. As a woman, I think at some point I realized that, you know, I always loved technology and like, you know, learned to code. I'm from Mexico City, like relatively young for like a woman growing up in Mexico. Like, I think I just felt really disappointed at some point when I realized that, okay, like I'm this big proponent for technology, and then as a woman, then I realized like, well, actually things haven't been designed, you know, with a...
Yeah.
You know what you're addressing too as well, most medical interventions into the whole sphere of pregnancy and birth have been male dominated and have been medically driven, as in it suits the hospital, not the woman. So I think what you're bringing here is, let's have a woman, you know, woman thinking, I'm not saying a man thinking, but it's not, you know, men in white coats deciding how women should have babies and how women should breastfeed, women should tend for their babies. So it's that feminine thinking, having been through the experience, or looking at women what they want, not what the hospital. I mean, I know we're moving away from that old-fashioned medical interventions, but it's as in, you know, purely it's a male-driven psyche. And now let's see how women want to use technology. So I think that's very powerful.
Very powerful. I just want to add something. I'm going to a little bit backtrack on something I was saying earlier. And this is a little bit delicate because we are only meeting each other for the first time on this platform. So, Andrea, don't take any offense, okay? But I just want to say something that I think might help you. I actually think that what you're doing with this intersection with technology and medical is really, really, important and groundbreaking. And you come across to me as someone super, super smart that could actually develop lots of products in that space. And so I'm going to backtrack on what I said earlier as I get to know you a little bit and say, and I've done this myself, there is an opportunity maybe for you to think about having a CEO or someone come in and run the product you presently got, who could build it from knowledge of the actual problem, as having experienced it themselves, and you could sit on top of the platform, coming up with other things that are needed in this space, right? Just throwing it out there, because I listen to you and I think I can hear you talking at the UN and having solved these serious problems in the world. And I don't know, I'm backtracking a bit on what I said earlier about focus on one product, but when I listen to you, I'm thinking, I can see you running a business that has many products, and maybe therefore you should bring a CEO in that could act, or someone in to support you, or maybe it's Sanjay's taking this role on too, but someone that can actually run the business and get into the nitty-gritty while you go off and create the next big MIT genius thing. Does it resonate?
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that, and I guess a question also as an investor. And I think what we found, and I mean honestly, that I mean this company, I couldn't have done it without like Sujay. He's like the like, you know, a pillar and the operational mind, and but that's something we have discussed because we are both so deeply. I mean, the reason we've taken the spearhead of CEO, COO is because we truly believe in the problem we're solving. But fundamentally, in terms of what we love to do, we love to create products. We have ideas, we have plenty. And I know a lot of people do, but we can also execute. But I do think that we're at this like place where again, like we want to run. Like we have like this vision of how we can continue to, change the world with technology. And I think now we've taken Lilu to a place where, we would be open to like, I mean, if somebody like operationally with like many years of like CEO experience, wanted to come and grow this, it's ready. So we have also grown the team right now in terms of like building. We were doing everything: marketing, business development. As a founder, right, you have to do everything.
Of course, yeah.
We're finally putting in place some of those like key teammates in place. But yeah, I mean, if we could like wave a magic wand and see like I mean, Sujay can tell you about all his ideas, like I can tell you about mine. We just need to put the people in place at Lilu, because we truly believe that we have something here that deserves to be in the hands of millions of moms.
Yeah.
And
there is an argument, by the way, that you should make it your priority. As I'm listening to you, if I was giving up, I would actually put it out there in the universe. You've got to ask for that person. Start interviewing now. It'll take you 6 months, maybe longer, to find them. And I would do it now. And ironically, by reaching out to the demographic I'm thinking of, you'll probably pick up people that will support you in your cause anyway. So it's not a waste of time. But I think you should start now finding someone, and I think you should start sketching out your other ideas and how they could work. Don't work in the business, work on the business. That's your role. So I'm doing a backtrack as I get to know you and what I was saying earlier. I still think someone needs to focus in on it. And I just think that listening to you, you're going to be better positioned building out all these products that are going to make the world a better place, and maybe bring someone into. And I know you mentioned something there that kind of touches a little bit of a nerve. You mentioned what investors might think, and whatever you're invested, they might have invested in you, right? Investors have invested in you. This is a very good way of filtering out if you've got the wrong investors, because the right investors will want you to develop lots of products that do good in the world, right? And they want you to be happy. If they want you to stay in the business because they invested in you staying in this one product business, you've got the wrong investors, and you can get money from other people, right?
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Like, you don't want to be trapped in this business necessarily. You want the opposite feeling. You want freedom. And so just listening to your experience and who you are, I would be advising you to employ a layer now, a CEO layer that comes in as a partner perhaps, but then can now develop the relationships of NCT and develop because they've been an NCT class. They've got to understand how those people think, right? They've been in the war when they were being shamed for not breastfeeding, or for breastfeeding and it not working. They've been there, they know, right? And so, bring that experience in and then leverage what you've got, that brain, that talent, that skill set you two seem to have as a dynamic, to start to develop. 6 months from now, the new person comes in, you're ready to go with your other business model, and off you go.
Yeah, no, I like that advice. I think it definitely resonates, because there was something else you were also talking about previously, about being able to do the things you love, right? And as a founder, sometimes you just do get trapped in like the day-to-day, and they need to get done. And I mean, there is something about like, you need sometimes to do it and persevere, but at some points, I think we've gone to a place where like, we're ready to get to that next stage.
Yeah,
and,
you don't want to get. I was going to use some orphan analogy about like, if the toilet's blocked, of course I'm going to go and clean it, but I don't want to clean it every day.
But it makes sense.
You will also do the business a disservice by not freeing yourself up. As I listen to your experience and who you are, you will actually be doing the business damage by. I've seen businesses, for example, that are doing really well, and I'm invested in one where basically they're still packing the boxes themselves because they can and because they felt they must, but they don't want to spend the money to hire someone to pack the boxes. So someone who's really good at business strategy is spending their time packing boxes because they should. That's what they were told a founder was meant to do. And yes, there is a period of time where that's true, but there comes a moment where you are starting to do it because you haven't got the time to hire someone else to do it.
Yeah.
That's when you start to never grow.
Right. Yeah, no, we've seen it. I remember very early on, the first few units, Sujay was putting them together one by one, and soldering and things like that. I was like, no, this can't be. It doesn't scale. Right? So
it doesn't scale. That's right. It doesn't scale. So anyway, look, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming on. And Sanjay, I really appreciate your kind words, and I really appreciate you guys sharing your story. And if there's anything myself can do for you, yeah, Jillian, thanks, Jillian. If there's anything we can do to help you further, let me know. Your links are all below, so anyone listening can click through. And you mentioned earlier wanting, you know, mothers to get involved. So any mothers listening, quite a few people have told me they're mothers. So please, you know, go click the links below and join their community, guys, and support. But if there's anything we can do to help you further, do let me know, okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no,
Thank you
thanks
so
a
much.
lot. Yeah, and for anyone else out there listening, you know, we love to connect on LinkedIn, and follow our journey, and you know, maybe if you know somebody that would like to come in and help us continue to grow this, then please do reach out.
Yeah.
And we'll put this up on all the channels now, LinkedIn, YouTube, so people hopefully will keep seeing this video for a while. So hopefully that message will get out to the people that you needed to get out to. But well done for what you're doing, and keep up the good work. And look forward to we'll keep a close eye on you guys too, and we're always here if you need help.
Thank you. And thanks so much, Jillian. I guess I look forward then to continuing our conversation, Jillian and Simon.
Yeah, we're going to get you on the show, talk about it. Brilliant.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye.
Jillian, thank you so much as well for your time today. It's been an honor to have you on and to hear your insights. And thank you so much for taking.
What a great couple! What a great business! I love it. I didn't know who they were before I came on. I'm entranced.
You know, every time I ever hear you know, honest founders doing authentic things, it just honestly it motivates me so much. It just, you kind of, I guess, believe in humanity again, you know, like, which sounds really kind of pessimistic, but there's just so many good people doing good things that ironically don't have the help they should, and they're not highlighted enough and not talked about enough, and so yeah, me too. I listen to what they're doing and I'm like, wow, how amazing! She's not even had the problem herself, you know, like, and she's trying to help people that have that. That's just another level, isn't it? As well.
What's really interesting, people were saying, oh, you can't force people to breastfeed. That's not the question. It's hard to get it right the first time. And most moms would typically like to breastfeed. And we know the medical reasons why, but they would like to do it for the bonding reasons. And it's tough. It's really, really tough until you get over that hurdle. And so anything that helps moms do that and helps the babies, helps them, helps everybody. It's not a forcing thing. It's a helping thing. We all need help. None of us, you know, learn to ride a bike without their parent or big brother or something helping them ride the bike. We all need a bit of help.
Could not agree more. Actually, it's part of my kind of slogan when I'm talking about entrepreneurship. No one can become an entrepreneur on their own. No one can become a doctor on their own. You know, like, we all need help. And so totally right, Jillian. Look, I want you back on. I feel we only just began to scratch the surface, and I've loved having you on the show, and I loved your insights, and my audience have just enjoyed it too. I can see all the comments. TikTok's gone a bit crazy today. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the time. Thank you. And thank you for introducing me to the lovely couple. Or the partner. Sorry, I'm looking forward to interviewing her on my video. Yeah,
it's kind of the butterfly effect, right? So it's really appreciate that. If you then also support and promote them, then and tell their story, and eventually they'll reach the people that ensure that they're successful. So thank you so much for doing that. It's really kind of you.
Thank you indeed. You're very kind.
All right, see you soon. Take care. So that's it, folks, for today. Actually, I'm back on again in 4 hours' time, 8:30 p.m. We have 3 entrepreneurs coming on who need our help. So I'd love it if you guys could come back and share your knowledge, share your views. I've listened to all of you guys today. James, Susie, watching all your comments, Jack, Sanjay, Mavrin. Thank you so much, everybody, for all your comments. Tango, I appreciate it. You guys rock. I can see hundreds of you online right now, all contributing to supporting this cause of helping 1 million people start a business of their own, and making sure anyone that has started a business isn't feeling alone doing it, isn't left without the few bits of knowledge they might need to take it to the next level. Now, the knowledge is out there, right? So hopefully we can all together bring that knowledge to these folks. So I'll be back on in 4 hours. You might be getting sick of my face today because it'll be the 3rd time I'm going live today, but I'll be back on at 8:30 p.m. As soon as I put my son to bed, I'll be back online talking to 3 entrepreneurs tonight. They'll be telling us for 15 minutes what they're up to, what their needs are, and then hopefully we will be helping them. And then I will finally be taking questions from you guys and trying my very best to answer any questions out there. If anyone's too shy to come on and tell us their story, then I know that's sometimes the case. You can just ask questions in the comments. and I will be spending this evening answering those questions. So I'll see you in 4 hours, guys. And thanks very much for listening. And just to say, if you did find anything useful here, hit the share button, let other people know about this. If there's any insights that we've talked about today that you think other people would also find useful, again, hit the share button. If you have any thoughts, any ideas, any questions, if you go into the comments section and ask those questions, I always answer all the comments. It sometimes takes me 2, 3 in the morning to do it, but I always do it. I always reply to the comments you guys give. So if you have any questions, or you have any points, or you have any leads, or you have any ideas, please feel free to drop them in the comment section. Otherwise, I'll see you in 4 hours.